I want to start out with talking to you and getting your take on something that really jumped out at me. Okay. Last week, there was an interview by the New York Times. You probably saw this, where they interviewed a bunch of New York Times reporters, sat down with President Trump. Yeah. And they asked the president if there were any limits on his global powers. Mm-hmm. And he said, yeah, there is one thing: my own morality, my own mind. It's the only thing that can stop me. And first of all, take aside the fact that having Trump's morality be the guardrail isn't all that helpful or assuring, okay? But it struck me that this is exactly what the founders of our country designed our country and our Constitution to prevent, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, there's the opposite.
There's a reason, Amy, when I decided to write my opinion piece from inside the administration in 2018, calling out the president's inclination toward illegality and corruption, the very first thing I cited was not episodes of law breaking or specific anecdotes. The very first thing I cited as the core of all of the problems that Donald Trump's own cabinet was seeing with their boss, the commander in chief, was that he was unmoored to any first principles, that he had no morality. That was the core of all of it, whether it's what Jim Mattis saw as Secretary of Defense, John Kelly as Chief of Staff and Secretary of Homeland Security, Mike Pompeo over at CIA and then the State Department. They all saw the same thing. And they all saw that at its very core was the president's lack of a moral center. That's why I led with that. And it is just as true, almost 9 years later, as it was then. And now we are seeing what Donald Trump's unchecked conscience results in. Everything you've seen in the past year was foreseeable, was openly predicted, and was something that Donald Trump in the first term wanted to do, but was convinced not to do, whether by the so-called axis of adults or lawyers or friends or allies. He was talked back from the brink. And now Donald Trump's conscience, such as it is running wild. And you are seeing the consequences of that. So yeah, I mean, look, he admitted to it. He's admitting to it in the pages of the New York Times, the same pages where I published that warning that his conscience could be the downfall of America. And we've got to take him at his word. We've got to take him at his word that he doesn't see the Constitution as a guardrail, that he no longer sees his team as a guardrail. He doesn't see Congress or Republicans as a guardrail. He doesn't see the courts as a guardrail. What do you do in the face of that? Well, first you acknowledge this means I'm in something different than a competitive multi-party democracy. This means I am living in a moment where our country is becoming an autocracy, and I need to respond accordingly. That is the first step.
Yeah. I mean, it's real. If you don't have a Congress that checks, you have a Supreme Court that's basically given him full immunity for anything that he does. His version of American supremacy has objectively put us in more danger, right? Our allies don't trust us anymore. I'm worried that he's going to blow up the greatest alliance in world history in NATO. And I'm worried here. I mean, it's just shocking to hear those words, and also shocking to see that, like, well, America just kind of goes on. Well, it's just Trump. Well, no, this is a problem.
Sleepwalking into it. Now, he already has blown up the alliance, I would say, Amy, is, the hot take among a lot of analysts is that Donald Trump is getting very close to pushing the first domino that could destroy the NATO alliance. I think he's already pushed it. He doesn't need to land a hostile jackboot on Greenland territory in an effort to take over the country in order to push that first domino to detonate the alliance. He's done it by threatening that. And look at what happened yesterday. Of course, we had officials from Denmark and Greenland in Washington, D.C. for negotiations with the White House on America's efforts to take over Greenland. Those officials left and said, nope, the administration still wants to, quote, conquer Greenland. And in response, our allies, France, Sweden, Germany, have deployed troops to Greenland. We have got NATO allies not preparing for an external invasion. They are literally preparing for an internal invasion. That itself has breached the trust that is the foundation of an alliance like NATO. It's only built on trust. There is no global police force to force people to live up to their treaty obligations. There's no global court that can actually say to a country like France, you must comply with your NATO obligations. They only do out of trust. So after 9/11, when we were attacked and NATO invoked Article 5, an attack on one is an attack on all. That's basically what it does. The only reason other countries responded is because they trusted that the United States would then go after the bad guys and that they were defending the good guys. It's all based on trust, but you don't need to know anything about global politics to understand this. You only need to have ever been in a relationship where there was infidelity, because the moment that breach of trust happens, even if your daily routines stay the same, the relationship changes forever. Now, that doesn't automatically mean the relationship's over. That's why I say a push of the domino. We haven't gotten to the end of the line of dominoes. NATO is not broken forever, but NATO is deeply, deeply damaged because of this breach of trust, because of the threat to take over its territory by the United States. And like a broken marriage, is going to require years and years of repair if we are to fix it. That is a grievous, grievous bit of damage that Donald Trump has done to the security of the United States.
When I was in Afghanistan, I flew alongside members of the French Air Force. The Danes were there. You know, the Dutch were there. So many nations were there with us, alongside us, doing logistics. Some were our medical. They did the medical tents. Some had C-130s. You know, they all did their part, and we fought alongside each other. And those same guys that I fought alongside in Afghanistan are now doing exercises and getting together to try to defend Greenland against us. It is just unbelievable how low we've gone. And I feel like, you know, with Donald Trump saying, well, we're going to take it one way or the other. I mean, I just look at this and I'm like, why? This is crazy. We already have the bases that we need there. I mean, again, it's one of these things. It's just this harebrained, stupid thing that he has got in his brain when he, you know, sits on the toilet and tweets out, and now it's destroying global security. I mean, this is where we're at.
Yeah, we are all less safe because of his verbal flatulence. And I will say that the thing that is so striking about Greenland is that it defies all logic, unless your North Star is power and money. Because Donald Trump knows that Greenland is a resource-rich nation. Why do you think he selected Venezuela? Of all the countries in Latin America that have a drug problem coming into this country, and he said fentanyl was the motivation. Why did he pick Venezuela? Guys, I will tell you, it is obvious. Oil, oil, oil. And that would have sounded like a conspiracy theory back in 2003 when people said, why is George W. Bush talking about going into Iraq? It's oil. Well, George W. Bush never tried to actually go seize oil and make money for himself personally. Donald Trump is attempting to do that. Donald Trump has said it's about oil. When Marco Rubio said it's about human rights, when his defense secretary, Pete Hegseth, said, no, it's about drugs, Donald Trump, the Sunday after they went into the country to get Nicolas Maduro, said, basically, it's about oil. He went on Fox News. He said it. That's why he's doing it. Do you really think that Donald Trump would invade Greenland? Not because of those self-interested motivations, but this time, this one's righteous. This one's got some sort of unseen moral reason behind it. No, it's about self-enrichment and it's about power. His own White House chief of staff said a month ago, almost today, that Donald Trump has a, quote, alcoholic's personality. He's not a drinker. What's he drunk on? Exactly what I told you the ICE agents are drunk on because of their inspiration from the president. He is drunk on power. I saw it 10 years ago. I see it with this man today. It is literally the greatest threat to this nation is that our president is so drunk on power, so imperialistic. He's putting all of our alliances and national and international stability at risk.
Talking about invading Greenland, it is not in the United States' interest. Okay. We already have the bases that we need there. It is just crazy. It would destroy NATO. It would throw the globe into upheaval. I mean, it is just crazy. And the opinion, just by the way, nobody really talks about this, but I think it's important. What do the Greenlanders think? Like, the Greenlanders, we know, vast majority of them, 85, 90% oppose leaving Denmark and joining the United States. I mean, so if the people that are there don't want us, now we're going to just take it over like we're some, imperial country just invading a country that, just like Vladimir Putin. I mean, it is crazy. And now the White House is talking about giving $100,000 payments to Greenlanders in order to try to sway them, to try to say, hey, come to the United States and we'll give you money. I mean, I got to tell you, at a time when Americans can't afford health insurance, when Americans are, the price of everything is going up from energy, heating, groceries. Now we've got the president wanting to hand over U.S. taxpayer money and $100,000 a piece to Greenlanders to make it the 51st state. Seriously? This is crazy.
Indiscriminately crazy. And I think it's so fantastic that you point to the money portion of this. Just before the holidays, Donald Trump raided one DoD account for affordable housing to then cut checks to members of the military that they could have gotten anyway for affordable housing, and said, I'm giving every member of the United States military a $1,400 check. I would love to go back to those folks and say, wow, look, the commander in chief gave you a $1,400 check. Now he wants to deploy you to take over a country where he's going to pay every person there, a foreign national, $100,000 to team up with us. That is incredibly insulting. Now, look, I'll say this. I like Greenland. I like the people of Greenland. I like our NATO allies. I like the idea of Greenland from a strategic standpoint and from the standpoint of a close friend being closer to the United States. Ain't nothing wrong with that. And if there are peaceful ways to talk about how to deepen our relationship with and our presence on the island, consistent with the wishes of the people of Greenland, rock and roll. Let's do it. There's ways to do that. And there's ways to do that that are vastly more effective than what Donald Trump is doing. But this ain't the way. And the people of Greenland don't want it. And the people of the United States don't want it. The majority of the people of Greenland have no interest in becoming part of the United States. And a CNN poll this week shows, guess what? 75% of Americans don't agree with Donald Trump's approach. No one is in favor of this except one man in the Oval Office and his flunkies who are turning that Oval Office into an echo chamber.